Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become the stepping stones to growth and clarity. I'm your host, Ezekiel Iferia, and today's guest is Bridget Hom, a mindset coach and best-selling author who teaches the law of deservability. But her expertise wasn't forged in a classroom. It was built during what she calls the Reinvention Evolution of 2020. While the world was shutting down, her personal life was turning upside down, navigating a Zoom divorce, watching her career in a seniors industry deteriorate, and moving into a small apartment with three young boys. She's here to share how she launched a business from the middle of that chaos, turning a moment of total upheaval into a movement that helps others find their freedom. So, Bridget, it's a pleasure to welcome you to FieldCraft. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Absolutely, Ezekiel. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to inspire your audience.
It's great to have you here. So, let's dive in, Bridget. Your story is the definition of a pivot. So, in 2020, you were facing a convergence of setbacks, a divorce, a deteriorating job, and sudden single motherhood in a small apartment. So, can you take us back to one of those quiet nights in that new apartment? So, what did that fear of the unknown feel like? And where did you find the audacity to launch a coaching business when your own life felt like it was under construction at that particular point in time?
It helped to have my children close by me because as a mom, you don't have a lot of time to think about your feelings. And as I tell business owners today, feelings aren't your friends. But when I think back to that time when I saw my boys running around the house, putting 10 pairs of socks on, making, lots of messes everywhere,
Mm,
Legos were everywhere. I mean, everything was everywhere in my house. I just would look at their smiling faces and I would think, what am I supposed to do? How can I take care of these three boys, put them through virtual school, and then still bring in an income enough to take care of the household expenses? What am I supposed to do? And for me, I've always relied on divine inspiration. As I like to say, God is my employer. And I've always said, all right, God, what next? And been very mindful of the opportunities that are presented to me. I am not a person who's below any kind of job. I'm ready to take any opportunity that was in front of me. I actually ended up painting a llama hut with a friend of mine who was a contractor during that time. I did Zoom music for senior centers to get paid at that time. And I did a whole bunch of little things because nothing was above me. And I was going to do anything it took to make sure that my kids could be provided for. And Bridge to Freedom coaching was just a side hustle at the time. I had had 3 clients total. And I got a random Zoom business networking link and showed up on this call at 8 a.m. And I said, Bridget Hom here with Bridge to Freedom coaching. Are you ready to level up? And instead of becoming an Instacart shopper or continuing to do all these little odd jobs, as God would have it, I had 6 clients within 6 weeks. And my programs were born, group coaching, group sales trainings, and I started equipping entrepreneurs with the mindset, skill set, and scale set for 6 to 7 figure growth during the hours of 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. So I could still pick up my boys and take care of them, pick up where we left off with their schooling for the day.
Bridget, that is truly inspiring. So you talk about the law of deservability. So during that low moment, did you struggle to believe you deserved success?
No, I didn't. And I'll tell you why. Because the underlying foundation of the law of deservability is that I believe you deserve success. You see, business and people are synonymous words. And so, what propels me every day and what propelled me knowing that I would be successful was because I believed in your success, in the person in front of me's success, in their happiness. So, I was always believing for more and better for the person that was in front of me in the Zoom room or the person in front of me at Publix or the grocery store or anywhere. And so I knew that if I was just made my number one goal to show up well and authentically, and my number two goal to empower the person in front of me no matter what, I would be successful. So that's what I always carry with me. Just, when you make sure that you're believing in success for others, you'll always walk alongside them and you'll never be alone in this journey towards success as an entrepreneur or if you're in a career, whatever that looks like, as long as you keep those two goals at the forefront of your mind.
All right, all right. Okay, I like to talk about imposter syndrome. So, like, how did you fight the internal voice that said, "Who are you to coach others right now?"
Yes, the mental team. You have to fire and hire the right mental team every day. For those days, I remember I did 30 calls in 1 week and nobody said yes to working with me.
Hmm.
And I've had a number of those weeks in my 5 years of coaching hundreds of individuals where it just wasn't clicking. We weren't in alignment with what they wanted. And man, when I was starting to create videos for webinars, and I had moments where I would hit record and then start crying. I had moments where I'm like, I don't know if I could keep doing this. And I had many moments like that. And what reminded me to keep going was never myself. It was never about me wanting more success or wanting, to monetize better. That's never been my motivation. My motivation to keep going was always that the next person I talk to might be someone who absolutely needs to do life and business on their terms. The next person I talk to could be desperately wanting to launch their business, but they have no idea how and they're treading water. And so that's what really keeps me going every day. And in those low moments, I always start thinking about others versus myself. Because when I think about myself, I start self sabotaging, as many of us do. We start to think about ourselves and then we say, poor me. And then we throw a pity party. And then we invite others to RSVP and they never do. And so you always want to be thinking about other people because that pulls you out of that, rut of sabotaging yourself and taking imperfect action to help others get massive results in their life and business.
All right, all right. Bridget, you were walking into networking meetings and asking, "Are you ready to level up?" So that takes immense courage, especially when you're hurting personally. So, what was that confidence real, or was it a fake it till you make it survival strategy that eventually became true?
Yes. Everything is a fake it till you make it. I tell people and entrepreneurs, you're building the plane while you're flying it.
Mm.
You always have to be trusting that the next step in front of you will appear, but you have to be taking steps in order for it to appear. You have to always be in that place where you're saying, okay, I'm going to be ready before I feel ready to make big moves. Because if you don't, the only thing that fixes or gets fear out of our minds is taking action. You fire fear and hire action on your mental team. And then the next successes, the next opportunity will appear in front of you because you're moving. You've got to stay in motion for success to find you.
All right, all right. So, Bridget, your book is titled Stuck on Ready. So, was there a specific fear that was keeping you stuck before you finally took action?
I think I've always been the person who says yes and jumps and thinks later. I've learned enough times that when you show up ready to help people have success, right? When you show up and you say, I'm likable, I'm teachable, and I want success for you and for me, that's a game changer for anyone that you meet. And so I try to focus on that as the principle in life that I do everything with. It's always about focusing on, okay, who can I help in front of me at this moment? What do they need? And does my skill set help them with getting what they want accomplished?
All right, all right. So, you went through divorce, which is also a form of grief. So, how did you manage the emotional heavy lifting of healing yourself? And of course, your boys too, while trying to build the emotional intelligence of your clients.
So the same strategies that I give my clients, I actually practice myself and I give to my boys. One of the strategies specifically, I remember my oldest, who was 9 years old at the time, he had actually wrecked the entire living room. Everything was overturned. And if you've ever stepped on a Lego, it's horrible. It's the worst pain you'll ever feel in your life. And I mean, the plants were overturned. He had flipped furniture, and he was just sharing with me how upset he was. And all I did was look at him and I said, "Thanks for showing me what's going on inside of you." And then I said, "Get a pen and paper out. I'm going to set a 2-minute timer, and you could write any word on this paper that you want, and you will not get in trouble. But you're going to write for 2 minutes." And after he did that exercise, which I call the brain dump, because I personally do it, my clients do this, it's a self-awareness and self-regulation exercise, he actually felt better. He was smiling. And I said, "What did you notice about yourself? And couldn't this have been a little better for writing for 2 minutes instead of now having to clean up this entire living room?" So I started to teach him that self-regulation, and I personally do that. I also relied on prayer. I relied on God directing me and staying honest with myself about if I was upset, I would take care of it. And I would address it without sweeping it under the rug. I had many people in my life that inspired me. I had coaches, I had a therapist at the time, and just knowing that there's no such thing as acceptance or rejection in relationships or business. There's only alignment. Knowing that my divorce had nothing to do with who I was, it's you have to both be in alignment to stay in a marriage. And so I decided to do, no matter what, the next right thing. And I remember I remember my parents going through therapy after they're 45 years married, and the therapist said, just become the best version of yourself no matter what happens in your life. And if you focus on that and taking care of other people, then everything will turn out okay. And I found that to be true.
Okay, thank you very much for that amazing response. So, Bridget, for the listener right now who is in the middle of their own personal earthquake, maybe a divorce, a layoff, or a total restart, and they feel paralyzed by the mess. So, what's the first small action they can take today to prove to themselves that they are still in the game?
Well, first of all, you want to start doing hobbies that make you feel you. I went to a dance studio and started salsa dancing again, which is actually where I found my first business partner for my first company.
Mm-hmm.
I started playing basketball again at the gym, challenging people to a pickup game. I started doing those things that made me I started worship leading again. I started doing those things that made me feel me. That's the first thing I would do if you're going through a massive transitions. Do those things that make you feel more you, more
Mm.
authentic. Second thing, I recommend that you look at your future successful self without judgment, without fear, and you write down what your future successful self is already doing, experiencing, and what kind of life they have. So you could step out of your mess and decide who you want to be. And I tell my high schooler that. My oldest is a high schooler now. And every single day, I try to remind him, I say, decide who you will be today, because that is the decision you could take ownership of every single day, every moment of your day, every circumstance, any environment. You get to decide who you will be today. That's what I would say.
All right, that is indeed a great piece of advice. I hope it helps someone out there listening. So, Bridget, I'd like to ask you a personal question. After rebuilding your life from scratch, becoming best-selling author and helping thousands of entrepreneurs, I'd like to know, what does being successful truly mean to you now?
Success means that I get to honor my roles and my goals daily. Success looks like I get to decide who I get to work with today. Success looks like I have date night with my husband every Saturday because I actually met my husband in Zoom business networking. Success looks like I get to go and be a mom as soon as my boys get out of school today, and they just think mommy just talks to people every day. Right? That's what I do, but I'm always present. Success means being totally present and aligned with God's will for me, and that I'm always staying in alignment with who I was created to be today.
Okay, that is truly an amazing meaning to attribute to being successful, and I hope you get to achieve each and every one of them. So, finally, Bridget, for our listeners who want to connect with you, learn more about you and your work, and find your resources, so where is the best place for them to go?
Come join my Facebook community, Bridge to Freedom Coaching Community for entrepreneurs and leaders. I I put resources, I do live trainings, and if you'd like to get my book for free plus shipping, it's stuck on ready.
All right, all right. Bridget, this has been such an energizing and inspiring conversation, and I am very excited to have you on the show today.
Yes, thanks for having me, Ezekiel. And thanks for asking the good, hard questions because it's so important to remember where we came from
Hmm.
and to remind each other that life is a beautiful mess and your message is important.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have the conversation with you.